On his 40th birthday, George Manning, a successful businessman, finds himself alone at home. His wife, Karen, has gone to San Diego to be with their sick son, Billy, leaving George to spend the evening by himself. As the night grows stormy, George hears the doorbell ring. When he opens the door, he sees two drenched women, Donna and Jackson, seeking shelter from the rain. They tell George they're lost, looking for someone named Gregory nearby. George says he doesn't know Gregory, but they ask to use the phone anyway. While Jackson makes the call, George offers Donna some pizza, but she refuses because of her diet. She thanks him for being kind to strangers. Then, Jackson asks for his address. When she finds out it's on North Barker Drive and they need South Barker Drive, she realizes their mistake. They ask if they can wait inside until their friend comes. George agrees and gives them towels and hot chocolate to warm up. They chat, and George says their names sound like a comedy team. The two say they're not exactly a comedy duo because they like doing fun stuff separately, but they enjoy each other's company. George asks if Jackson is the woman's first name, but she says it's Agatha. They chat more, and George mentions it's his birthday, which makes Donna wonder why he's alone. George explains his wife went to San Diego because their son is sick. Then, the women notice George's stereo and albums. George tells them he's been collecting since he was a kid. Donna apologizes a bunch of times, thinking he must be rich because of the expensive albums. Jackson goes to the bathroom, leaving Donna and George alone. Donna asks George to feel her hair to see if it's dry. He does and tells her it's damp. She compliments him, saying he gives off good vibes. George asks about her music taste, and she says she likes everything, especially rock. George plays a rock album for her. Jackson comes back and is impressed by the bathroom. Donna wants to see it too, so they go together. They admire the big blue tub and check out the sauna. Later, George starts worrying about the time and heads to the bathroom. He finds the ladies in the bathtub without clothes. They invite him to join. In the bathroom, they chat. When George mentions he's married, the persistent women try to seduce him. After that, Jackson and Donna are in the living room. Donna admits she's starting to like George. Worried about him catching a cold, she covers him with a blanket and leaves her friend. The next morning, George wakes up surprised to find the ladies still there, making breakfast. He thought they had left. Jackson says they stayed because he was kind to them. George asks about their friend, but they say the person never showed up. George lets them stay longer. As George changes, Donna asks why he's been distant. He tells her last night was just a one-time thing, not serious. During breakfast, George notices Jackson eating messily with her hands, while Donna mixes eggs and pancakes on her plate before eating. Curious, he asks if they live together and where they stay, offering to give them a ride. But Donna says they don't have a home, and Jackson admits they made up the story about finding someone last night. Still, George insists on giving them a ride wherever they want. They laugh, and Jackson jokes about going to Paris, while Donna says she wants to stay. As they eat, they keep laughing, and George tells them off for their bad manners, comparing them to alley cats. Jackson curses at him, upsetting George. She takes it back, saying she was just teasing. George tells them to change their clothes. Donna does, but says she doesn't like him anymore because he's unfriendly. Jackson stays at the table, eating until she's full, then relaxes on the sofa, listening to loud music. George finds his explicit magazine on the floor and turns off the stereo, but Jackson keeps teasing him. He hears a noise and rushes upstairs. He finds Donna wearing his wife's nightgown, and he tells her to take it off. She acts childish and says she shares food with him, then jokes about sharing his wife's size. George gets more annoyed and tells her to change into her own clothes. The woman looks upset, saying she was just trying to impress him. George tells her the fun is over and asks her and Jackson to leave. Jackson comes upstairs and joins Donna in asking George why he's changed toward them after they had fun the night before. But George gets angrier and threatens to call the police if they don't leave. As George starts to dial, Jackson says they could get him in trouble because they're underage. She warns him about the consequences, saying he could lose his family, friends, and business. Annoyed by the threats, George asks them what they want, but they don't give a clear answer. Donna says she likes him because he's different. Then the doorbell rings, and Jackson tries to answer it, but George stops her. He opens the door to their maid, Mrs. Grossman, apologizing for forgetting to cancel her appointment and asks her to come back on Thursday. Upon returning inside, George finds the two ladies acting unruly. Donna plays the piano while Jackson messes with the phone antenna. Jackson taunts George, warning him about the risk of losing everything he worked for. This prompts George to chase her. Donna adds to the chaos by playing background music and laughing. Eventually, George catches Jackson and gently pushes her onto the sofa. He then reaches for the phone to call the police. Terrified, Jackson stops him, admitting defeat. When George tells them to leave, Jackson asks for a ride. Reluctantly, George agrees to get them out of sight. On the road, they continue to annoy him, so he threatens to pull over and make them walk if they don't quiet down. Later, George drops them off at the Greyhound bus depot, feeling relieved to be rid of them. He returns to his everyday life, contacting Karen on the way home. She tells him she'll be back with their son Billy the next day. Arriving home, George notices movement upstairs and hurries to investigate. As he searches, he enters the main bedroom, where Jackson and Donna surprise him, using pepper spray to incapacitate him. George falls unconscious, and when he wakes, he finds himself tied to the bed with torn bed sheets. Nearby, the two women sit at the vanity, using Karen's makeup. Donna draws a heart on the mirror, proclaiming her love for George. Their moment is interrupted by a ringing phone, which Jackson answers, revealing George's predicament to the caller, whom she claims to be George's long-lost niece. Donna starts bouncing on the bed, prompting George to ask her to stop. When he requests to be untied, Donna approaches him, but Jackson stops her, reminding her not to release him. Donna then starts addressing George as if he were her father, expressing affection for him. However, her demeanor suddenly changes, and she begins hitting him. Jackson distracts her by opening a cabinet filled with nice clothes, suggesting they play dress-up. They begin dancing and having fun. Seeing that they're distracted, George tries to make a call, but Jackson catches him and hits him. The women continue wearing their chosen outfits, Jackson in a tuxedo hat and coat, and Donna in a beautiful gown. They then drag George downstairs, causing him to break free momentarily, grabbing Donna, who pushes him down. Jackson grabs a vase and hits George over the head with it. They leave him on the floor, pouring flour, sauces, and milk on him while singing a Christmas song. They tie him to the fireplace, where Donna cleans him up. Jackson wakes him, pretending to be a judge. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, startling them. Donna says it's the delivery man for the groceries she ordered. George tries to scream, but Jackson stuffs cloth in his mouth and tells Donna to direct the delivery man to the back. They meet the delivery guy, who places the groceries on the kitchen counter. He notices their makeup, and the women lie, saying they're having a costume party. Suddenly, George manages to pull the cloth from his mouth and screams for help. The courier hears him and heads to the living room, but the ladies try to stop him. Before he can reach George, Jackson hits him with a bludgeon, knocking him out. Then, they put the unconscious delivery guy inside the fish tank. George protests, telling them it's murder, but they laugh and continue. Annoyed by George's screams, Jackson gags him again. They confirm the courier is dead, so they close the fish tank and continue the mock trial. The state versus George Manning, Jackson declares. She accuses him of corrupting minors. Donna laughs, holding George's cat, saying he can't plead because he's gagged. Jackson calls Donna as the first witness. Donna describes meeting George on the street and how he offered her candy and cookies when she came to his house. Donna recalls George's initial friendliness, but then he made unwanted advances, telling her she was pretty. When she tried to leave, he prevented her. He chased her and tore her clothing, taking advantage of her. She mentions he coerced her into doing things she doesn't want to detail. Later, Jackson, acting as judge, calls herself as the second witness. Then she calls George to the stand and removes the gag so he can speak. George calls the mock trial insanity and asks Jackson to consider her own need for a father. She reveals her father wasn't around much. George insists his family needs him, but Jackson questions his sincerity, asking why he didn't prioritize them the previous night. George argues it's unrelated. He asks Jackson why she's filled with anger, but she tells him to be quiet, saying he'll never understand. Afterward, she announces that the court will now recess to deliberate the verdict. While the ladies contemplate how to proceed, George hears them from the living room, making him fear for his life. Desperate to escape, he tries to reach the phone with his feet. He succeeds, but when he tries to dial, Jackson catches him and slaps him. They deliver their verdict, declaring George guilty on all counts and sentencing him to death at dawn. They place an hourglass in front of Jackson's face, giving him only 5 hours to live. With 5 hours left, Donna plays with the businessman's cat and throws it out of the window. As the countdown continues, George struggles against his restraints, hoping they'll loosen. Later, as Donna approaches him for a final romantic encounter, he pretends to submit. When momentarily free, he tries to escape, but Jackson knocks him out with another vase. After tying him up again near the fireplace, the two women go to the kitchen to eat Donna's groceries, leading to a romantic moment between them. Meanwhile, George feels traumatized and devastated, hearing the women's voices echoing in his head. When George has 1 hour left to live, Donna tries to wake him by wrecking the house, but he's too tired to open his eyes. As his time is almost up, the duo moves him to the couch, preparing for his supposed demise. Jackson takes a cleaver and positions it as if to behead him. She raises her hand, aiming for his neck. However, at the last moment, she lets the weapon fall, revealing that it was all just a prank. After this, the deranged duo leaves George on the floor. They leave the house, laughing crazily. As they walk through the neighborhood, distracted and happy, they run onto the street, where a speeding van suddenly hits them.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and stay connected with us.